Chronicles of the Averant Empire. Chapter 1: Damp Cells and a Greasy Mug. The Duchy of Courtoise was once the pride of the Averant Empire, an empire nestled in the southwestern reaches of the Great Fen, in the land of Orden, far in southwest Vasloria. From High Mount capital in the north, to the imperial port of Saint-Gerard on the southern shores, even to the sun-kissed archipelago of Courtoise, all knew of Courtoise's fabled liquors, poets and painters. Yet it was also the empire's bulwark against the undead legions of the west, defending the border from the hordes of the vampire Prince Clemente, a fiend who had devoured the empire's western provinces for 10 long years, leaving only the blighted expanses in his wake. But the Duke of Courtoise has fallen, brandishing his scepter one last time in battle against the dead. He was brought back to the capital of his duchy, half delirious. In a fit of lucidity, the old noble called for aid, beseeching heroes far and wide to come and defend the good people of his lands. His dying wish was that his 2 daughters, gifted conduits like their father, rule together. Summoned from the imperial court, the sisters took up the mantle. Until a few days ago, Lucenia the elder was spirited away by her sister Marsinia, a betrayal that shook the duchy to its core. Courtoise began to fall, and Marsinia fled into the newly claimed lands of the undead. The vampire Prince Clemente welcomed her as one of his trusted advisors. It was in the aftermath of that tragedy that the final caravan of recruits, summoned by the late Duke, arrived at Courtoise after journeying through distant baronies and wild territories. As the caravan neared the capital of the duchy, those good-hearted souls who came forth to lend their aid saw the ducal manor consumed by a whirling vortex of violet and black winds. Among the travelers was a woad elf named Sylvic, her purple pointed ears hidden beneath a white hood embroidered with threads of gold and purple. She whispered a prayer to the apothecron, her round, wide eyes lost into nothingness as the storm coiled about the manor in measured swirls of wind. Rhovac watched her, then turned his gaze toward the manor, his heart heavy with worry. The dwarf had grown fond of her and of a young lad named Alfonse. The 3 had journeyed together to Courtoise, not quite friends, rather acquaintances bound by the road, and perhaps by the purpose yet unspoken for the good of the duchy. They had also taken in a stranger among their number, a time raider, Laz'zir, a scaly yellow creature with 4 arms and eyes like diamonds, clad in garments born of another world, perhaps even another age. His leg was fashioned from an old bark. He had fallen from the sky years ago, his vessel crashing in a woad. Most among the caravan feared him, but not Rhovac nor Sylvic. When at last they descended before the garrison of Courtoise, among the last of the adventurers in search of fame, the weary soldiers who yet remained turned them away, overburdened by the watch upon the manor and the protection of the good people of the city. Many of these traveling recruits, struck to the heart at the sight of the dread enchantment enshrouding the ducal halls, departed soon after, disheveled, dismayed, and disappointed. A lieutenant of the Duke's retinue called after them that help was still needed, but his words fell upon deaf ears. Yet Rhovac, Sylvic, Laz'zir, and Alfonse remained steadfast. They approached the lieutenant, who thanked them with weary gratitude and bade them inquire into the recent disappearances in the nearby town of Osmond. Determined to be of use, the 4 acquaintances journeyed to Osmond in the southeast of the duchy, but a few leagues from Courtoise. They arrived under cover of night, weary and hungry. At the Greasy Mug Inn, they took their supper, hot veal and dark ale, grateful for warmth and rest. Yet, as the fire crackled low and laughter filled the hall, a strange unease crept upon them. The room seemed to tilt, the light dimmed, and the laughter died. Darkness claimed them. When next they woke, the sound of dripping water echoed in their ears. Cold stone pressed against their backs, and iron shackles bit into their wrists. Around them, in the gloom of a dank cellar, others stirred, a dozen prisoners like themselves. As their eyes adjusted to the gloom, a shape stirred among the prisoners, small, horned, and cloaked in rags damp with mildew. Her voice was low and quick, every word a hiss between fangs. "Careful," she whispered with fear on her breath. "Skeletons walk these halls. They took a podler and a human not an hour past. If they hear us, more will be chosen. Sylvic's breath caught, her purple skin paling under the effort. Alfonse squirmed. He looked more like a hapless boy than a fury, breathing quickly like a rabbit taken in a burlap sack. Rhovac came slowly back to his senses. Through the iron gate of the prison, Laz'zir's diamond eyes caught the movement. Two skeletal sentries, clad in rusted cuirasses, dragging limp swords into the corridor beyond. Their hollow sockets burned with green fire as they vanished into the darkness. "See," the devil murmured almost in a cry. "The dead patrol these halls. None return who are taken." An orc prisoner at the far wall growled deep in his throat. "I'll not rot here like cattle," he said, tugging at his manacles until blood ran from his wrists. The iron groaned, but did not yield. Sylvic leaned forward, her gaunt cheeks heavy with moisture.
"Quiet, fool. You'll bring them back upon us."
"Better a fight than waiting for chains to rust," the orc spat.
"Hold on! I'll try something,"
Rhovac murmured. The dwarf's stone-rough hands traced the damp wall behind his back. He rapped it once, hollow. A low rumble answered as he pressed harder. Dust sifted down. The outline of a rectangle, roughly the size of a door, appeared in the wall. With a grinding crack, the slab gave way. Chains clattered to the floor, and somewhere beyond the darkness came an otherworldly sigh, a warning. Rhovac's lips curled into a grin.
"There's air beyond,"
He said, his voice low and steady.
"A passage, perhaps."
A smell rolled out from the fissure, foul, heavy with the stench of rot and stagnant water.
"Sewers,"
Rhovac muttered grimly.
"Not a place of honor, but better than this cell."
Rhovac turned first to Sylvic.
"Let me free you!"
He rumbled, setting his hands upon the woad elf's chains. His fingers, stone and sinew, bit into the iron. With a sharp twist, the shackles snapped like kindling. Sylvic rose, rubbing her wrists. She whispered a prayer, and light bloomed from her palms, spilling like liquid dawn through the gloom. One by one, the locks shattered beneath her touch, freeing Laz'zir and the trembling Alfonse. The Fury stumbled to his feet, sickly beneath the grime. Without his enchanted garment, he felt small, naked even, his confidence stripped away. The others turned to the captive, still huddled in the corner.
"Hide.
Sylvic urged softly.
Stay silent until we return."
But the orc prisoner was done waiting. With a snarl and a flash of yellow eyes, he ripped free from his chains and charged through the hole Rhovac had opened.
"Wait!"
Sylvic reached after him, but he was gone into the sewers. Rhovac and Laz'zir peered into the narrow breach, the Time Raider disappearing just beyond. The tunnel yawned, the air heavy with the stench of decay.
"What do you see?"
The dwarf muttered, his voice low as gravel. Before Laz'zir could answer, a faint clatter echoed from the corridor beyond the iron gate, bone on stone. The sound grew louder, metal scraping, hollow feet dragging. A skeleton, clad in rusted mail, appeared at the door. Its jaw hung half unhinged, the latch creak.
"Back!"
Sylvic cried, raising her hand. Her light flared, blinding white against the dark. The radiance struck the undead full in the chest, crack, and hurled it backward into the wall. Its skull split on the stone, scattering bone shards across the floor.
"Another!"
Rhovac barked. A second skeleton lurched into view, drawn by the clash. Its rusted sword scraped sparks as it raised it to strike. On the other side of the breach, Laz'zir moved. The Time Raider slipped through a door that opened into the same corridor as the cell. He burst through behind the creature, forearms a blur, caving the thing's spine. At that same instant, Sylvic's light flashed again, a ray slicing through the gloom. The skeleton shattered in mid-step, bones fading into ash. For a moment, the cellar was still again, save for the echo of dripping water and the faint hiss of Sylvic's fading light. In a corner, the prisoners huddled against one another. Alfonse's eyes darted toward the shadows.
"Our things."
He breathed. Voice trembling, he said.
"They took everything."
Alfonse closed his eyes, drawing upon his human blood, letting him see beyond the veil. Threads of unseen force tugged at his senses, metal, fabric, old enchantment, pulling somewhere not too far.
"There."
He whispered, pointing into the dark.
"Our gear lies that way."
The four pressed on through the iron door, the hinges wailing as it swung open. They turned left, then right. following the flickering pulse of Alfonse's strange intuition. His gaze darted through the gloom, chasing the unseen, and soon he stopped before a narrow archway. Beyond it lay a small chamber, a table, a few stools, dust thick on the floor, racks and chests lined the walls, their contents scattered and half-broken. Yet among the rust and ruin, Rhovac's eyes caught the gleam of steel.
Our things.
Alfonse whispered. They hurried inside. Laz'zir's many hands worked with grace, strapping on his harness and grabbing his trusty halberd. Alfonse knelt by a chest and drew out a fine garment of crimson and grabbed his cornure from the wall. He draped it across his shoulders while none was looking, and the air seemed to change. His posture straightened, the sickly pallor lifting from his face. The silk transformed him, protecting him in elegant folds, reflecting the torchlight in hues of red and gold. For a heartbeat he was changed, radiant, poised, beautiful, in a way that defied simple telling. Equipped once more, they retraced their steps to the cell where the prisoners waited expectantly, then slipped through the jagged hole in the wall. The air beyond was colder and damp. After a few minutes' careful walking, they heard it. The soft murmur of running water. The tunnel sloped downward into a wider passage.
I think I see something,
Laz'zir said, voice low. They followed the current until the passage ended at a crumbled wall, half collapsed. A narrow trap beneath it swallowed the flow of water into darkness. But to the other side, the sewer opened into a broader chamber, diamond-shaped. The floor broken and strewn with rubble. Wooden planks spanned the narrow walkways, slick with grime. In the center, a shallow pool of water festered. Something green bobbed on its surface, a severed orcish hand, fingers half-curled as if still grasping for freedom. They approached the diamond-shaped chamber. Moonlight piercing through the ceiling washed weakly over the broken stone, revealing planks bridging the walkways and the dark pool in the center. Sensing danger, Rhovac reached for the chisel at his belt and began etching runes into his stone flesh, a prayer to Ord, god of the dwarves, for sight beyond sight. The markings flared faintly in green, heat thrumming beneath his skin. Something pulsed at the edge of his consciousness, the presence of the skeletal forces, faint and distant, drifting northward and below. He frowned. Whatever lurked in this room was no skeleton. Before the dwarf finished, ripples spread across the water. From the wall opposite Sylvic, two azure hands clawed their way out of the stone, followed by the warped face of a spectre. Its eyes glowed like sapphires, its mouth a void that drew in the light around it. Sylvic raised her hand, summoning her holy radiance, and struck out with it, a burst of blinding force that met the spirit's chest. The light flared, but the spectre did not yield. It pressed forward, dripping shadow.
Back!
She cried, pressing harder, but her light barely slowed it. Two more shapes slid through the walls, one beside the first, another across the chamber. Cold filled the air. Then the water erupted. 4 ghouls clawed their way from the black pool, flesh grey and slick, eyes burning with hunger. 2 more burst from behind the group, dragging corpses and sludge. The stench was unbearable.
6 of them,
Laz'zir hissed.
and 3 wraiths.
Make that one less.
Rhovac growled. A ghoul lunged at him, shrieking. He caught it by the throat with one hand and slammed it into a rusted barrel. The impact rang through the chamber, followed by a roar of fire as the barrel burst. The explosion hurled another ghoul, screaming into the pool, its body aflame before the water swallowed it. Flames licked the walls, throwing the spectres into stark relief as the fight began in earnest. The nearest spectre vanished in a shudder of shadow, dematerialized, only to reform beside them, shrieking at their faces. In a blink, the group was caught in a pincer, ghouls closing from behind, the spirits pressing from the front. Sylvic's light flared, a halo around her steady hands.
Stay close!
She cried as a beam of light fell onto one of the spectres. One of the ghouls struck from behind, but Rhovac thrusted his hands outward and lightly touched it. He touched it lightly, and the ghoul was sent reeling across the room. From behind them, Laz'zir's voice cut through the din, commanding,
Focus on the weak ones first. Conduit, hold the line. Rhovac, flank left.
His forearms moved like a conductor's, halberd spinning in arcs. Alfonse, crimson silk fluttering, broke from the group with a roar. His cornure flashed in the firelight, and with 2 sweeping blows, he felled a pair of ghouls that lunged for the flank.
That's 2 for me.
he shouted, voice ringing with fierce joy. Laz'zir's eyes darted toward one of the spectres hovering near the far wall.
That one, stronger than the rest.
He and Alfonse advanced together, moving in perfect rhythm. The spectre dove toward them, its form flickering in and out of being. But Alfonse's strikes kept it anchored, each blow scattering wisps of black vapor. Across the room, Rhovac slammed his hands into the ground. The stones cracked open beneath the spirit, a sudden pit yawning wide. The spectre, now half materialized and weakened by the Fury's blows, let out a wail as it fell, its form tearing apart in the surge of elemental energy. For the first time, the chaos of the fight shifted into something else, not panic, but rhythm, four acquaintances learning to fight as one. The party split. Rhovac and Laz'zir took the lead, pressing deeper through the tunnel, the air growing colder with every step. Sylvic and Alfonse retraced their steps to the cell, helping the captives through the sewers. The tunnel curved sharply as a jagged fissure tore the stone. Through it, a faint breeze carried the scent of earth and crushed grapes. Rhovac leaned close, tasting the air.
Vineyards,
He murmured.
Rodolfo's lands, if I recall what a local mentioned when we first arrived in town. We're beneath the southern reaches of Osmond, beyond the wall of the city.
The crack widened just enough for passage. One by one, the adventurers guided the shaken prisoners through, their steps muffled by damp soil. Above them, the distant creak of vines swayed in the night wind. For the first time since awakening in the cellar, the air smelled almost clean. The small devil that spoke to them in the cell, Panchia, clung to Sylvic's cloak, her slitted eyes glimmering. "The Podler and the human," she hissed. "They're still taken." "The dead keep them for something." Sylvic met her gaze and nodded grimly. "Then we're not finished." When the last of the prisoners was clear, Rhovac turned back toward the tunnels. The fissure behind him breathed a chill wind, whispering faintly of the dark below. He hesitated, the weight of stone and silence pressing on his chest. There was safety here, among soil and root, but something deeper called him back, and he looked once more toward the black mouth of the tunnel.
"We should go back,"
he said. Retracing their steps, the companions returned near the chamber where they had found their gear. From there they pressed on into the adjoining passage. Before long, the corridor opened into a vast crevasse that split the ground like a wound. From its depths rose the echo of shuffling feet and the hollow chorus of the dead. Hundreds of them, perhaps more. Sylvic edged closer, her light spilling over the rim. Her breath caught. Half a man's body jutted from the edge, torn and twisted. His fingers were raw, blood smeared across the wall beside him. One word, written in shaking strokes, marked the stone. "Betrayed." He wore a tabard marked with the coat of arms of the city of Osmond. A heavy silence fell. Then Laz'zir's eyes gleamed with intent.
"Wait here!"
He rasped. Before anyone could question him, he vanished back down the tunnel. Minutes dragged into long silence before he returned, burdened with one of the barrels from the diamond chamber, its lid stenciled with the sigil for volatile compound.
"Step back,"
he warned. With precise mechanical motion, he rolled the barrel to the edge and tipped it over. A heartbeat later, the abyss erupted in a roar of flame. The shrieks of the dead rose with it, a discordant wail that curdled the air before fading to silence.
Efficient,
Sylvic muttered. Laz'zir only shrugged, forearms folding neatly behind his back. The group moved on along the crevasse until the path bent sharply right, forming a narrow corridor. A door stood to their left. Alfonse stepped forward and reached for the handle.
Careful!
Sylvic began, but too late. The door creaked open, and the floor beneath Alfonse split. Iron spikes shot upward in a blur of motion. He twisted aside just in time, the trap's teeth missing his leg by inches. He exhaled sharply.
Noted.
One by one, they vaulted over the deadly pit and regrouped. The corridor became a short landing. A stairway led upward, and another descended deeper into shadow. Up first, they decided. The stairs brought them to a crumbling landing at the very edge of the ruins. Through cracked masonry, they glimpsed a stretch of dark forest, the silver gleam of vineyards in the distance, and far off, the southern wall of Osmond. Sylvic stepped to the threshold, her gaze fixed upon a distant brass symbol, half overgrown with ivy and stone.
The Temple of the Sublime,
She whispered.
the mad one who wore Val's face and sought to rule the world from Dragonback.
A hush fell among them. Then, without a word, they turned back and descended. Below, the passage bent in an L shape, ending in 2 doors. They took the one to the right first. Inside lay a cramped library, shelves long collapsed, a rug thick with dust, and a desk strewn with parchments, both crusty and fresh. Beyond it, another door led to a chamber lined with cruel devices, 2 coffins of iron. Inside both, iron spikes shimmering with fresh blood.
"Do vampires sleep like so in your world?"
muttered Laz'zir. Sylvic brushed the dust from a few scattered pages on the desk. "The pawn is set by our friend in the citadel. He is obedient. I am ever watchful in his affairs," the note read. Backtracking into the study, they found another, written in a firmer hand, signed by the letter K. "Violence had never been part of our agreement. Do not contact me again." The gold in the irises of Sylvic faded to grey.
Whoever wrote this,
she murmured,
was playing a dangerous game.
They returned to the corridor's other door. From beyond it came a low, droning chant, a voice soaked in malice. Alfonse's jaw tightened.
Enough of this.
He surged forward and slammed his shoulder into the door. The wood splintered, hinges shrieking as it burst inward. The chamber beyond was an old chapel, stained glass long shattered, with windows covered by earthen stones, pews overturned, rugs matted with dried blood. A single-robed figure stood before the altar, a vampire, tall and thin, its skin as pale as wax. At its feet knelt 2 captives, the podler and the human, both guarded by umbral spectres wielding ethereal swords. One of the chapel's pillars had collapsed, broken across the floor like a fallen tree. Behind it, the stone itself yawned open, a gaping maw in the earth. Across the room, a dozen shades and several skeletons turned around in surprise. The vampire's red eyes gleamed. "Ah, a little feast for me." Before he could speak again, the ground trembled. Rhovac slammed his fists to the floor, and ripples of earthen force surged through the stone. The vibration burst upward, shattering the ground beneath a cluster of shades that lurked near the collapsed pillar. 4 of them almost crumbled instantly, swallowed by fire and stone. Sylvic's voice rose in a prayer, light spilling from her like a storm of gold. Radiance flowed through the party, sealing wounds, steadying breath. Her healing warmth cutting through the rot in the air. The vampire hissed, cloak whipping as he leapt high, landing with terrible grace among them. "Enough!" he snarled. Laz'zir barked orders through the chaos.
"Form up! Rhovac, hold the shades at bay, throw them in the gap. Alfonse, front and get the skeletons. Sylvic, use your radiance on us."
His halberd spun in wide carving through approaching shades. Each command brought the others into rhythm, their movements now unified. Alfonse advanced, his crimson garment billowing, eyes bright with fury. The conure sang as it struck, smashing skulls and sending bones flying. He fought with calm, each motion measured, graceful. The vampire struck back, claws flashing. His first blow caught Alfonse across the shoulder. Darkness rolled through the chapel, as one of the umbral spectres, appearing just behind Laz'zir, plunged the room into utter night. The 4 shades descended upon Rhovac once more. Their touch burned cold, drawing the life from him. He gritted his teeth and called upon the deep earth. Vines burst from his back like living whips, lashing out in every direction. The shades reeled. 2 of them knocked into the gaping maw, their wails vanishing into the depths below, while the 2 others vanished before his eyes. Across the room, Alfonse clashed with the vampire, driving him back blow after blow until the creature teetered over the pit. For a heartbeat, it seemed he would fall, but he hovered there, eyes blazing with rage. He instructed the remaining shades to plunge on Sylvic. The shades did so, their ghostly mouths sinking into her flesh. She gasped, her light flickering. The vampire turned into a swarm of bats, flying past Sylvic in a pincer maneuver. She was stuck. Twice the vampire struck her through them, draining her strength until she could barely stand. Still, she raised her hand, touching his face, light against death, and the holy fire burned his skin as he laughed. The other spectre lashed toward the captives, striking the human with a cruel spectral claw. Alfonse broke from the fight, finishing off a skeleton as he dove forward, pulling the wounded man clear. At the back of the room, Rhovac roared, slamming his palms outward. 2 skeletal thralls were hurled backward by a surge of earthen force, tumbling screaming into the pit. Laz'zir slashed at the umbral spectre in his back, restoring what little light emanated from the room. Only the vampire remained, smoldering and defiant, materializing between Laz'zir, Sylvic, and Rhovac. "You think you can destroy us so easily?" He laughed and tore open his robe. From within, he drew a handful of long, blackened nails, 30 in all, that hovered around him like iron stars. With a hissed incantation, he flung out his arms. The nails turned inward, driving themselves into his flesh. The vampire arched back, screaming. His body convulsed as blood burst from the wounds, then vaporized into a crimson mist. The air thickened, hot and corrosive. In a heartbeat, the mist expanded, washing over the three adventurers. Sylvic felt it burn through his skin like acid. Laz'zir and Rhovac stumbled back. Silence fell. Sylvic sank to her knees, barely conscious. Rhovac lay his great hands in front of her, infusing health into the conduit. They backtracked through the fissure, past it, and advanced into the sewers beneath the town. Faint marks on the wall, chalk arrows, scrawled notes half erased by moisture, guided them through the dark. After what felt like hours, they stopped at a rusty iron door giving onto a cellar storeroom lined with bottles and barrels and dried food. Inside, a ladder led upward to a trap door. The adventurers made a bivouac hidden among the barrels, waiting for the abductor to show. The sudden clink of glass and heavy footsteps above the trap door broke the quiet. A voice sobbing in a deep tone reached Sylvic's ears. They stood there, motionless, listening to the quiet crying above. Suddenly the trap door opened, and in came a massive orc, his belly muscular but distended by gluttony, onto which were resting firm pectorals. In this instant, all four adventurers recognized the innkeeper. He shuffled to wine bottles, pushed them with odd delicacy before grabbing 2 bottles of liquor. The orc sniffled heavily before making his way back upstairs. Sylvic reached inside her, using her elven bloodline to glamour herself, her body disappearing with her surroundings. She climbed the stairs without making them creak before absconding through the trapdoor and rolling to the side of the bar. The orc was started when he heard the trapdoor close again. "I must be way too drunk already," the innkeeper whispered through lips heavy with alcohol. Sylvic changed her voice, modulating it to one akin to an old orc ancestor long gone.
Be calm.
Sylvic said softly, voice thick with compassion.
Tell me what happened.
The orc swayed, tears welling in his eyes. "Didn't mean for it to go this way. I miss my boy, and I am worried sick for him. They stole him away, asked me to do their bidding." He broke off, sobbing, the words dissolving into drunken murmurs until he slumped against the bar, asleep. After ensuring that the orc was fast asleep, the woad elf went to the trap door and let her companions in, sharing a look of uneasy pity.
Let him rest,
Sylvic said, the light fading from her skin.
We might learn more in his private chambers.
Something sat oddly with Rhovac. He etched another rune in his stone skin, asking his god once more to show him where skeletons might be hiding. A pulse came above his head. Leaving Alfonse to watch over him, the others ascended the creaking stairs. Several doors greeted Laz'zir, Sylvic, and Rhovac, from which one could hear the patrons of the inn snoring. The three arrived at a door on which was etched the word private. The woad elf failed to lockpick the door, almost rousing the innkeeper and the tenants. The dwarf stepped beside her and touched the wall nearby, opening a gaping hole which gave way on a corridor. All stepped awkwardly through the hole as Alfonse shushed them, asking them to stay quiet. The corridor was filled with baubles and trinkets and weapons and monster trophies. They passed a narrow doorway into a child's room. There had been a fight, scattered toys, a turned-up small desk, and a bed flung across the wall. The window was crudely patched with stained cloth, the night wind howling through the gaps. Rhovac was pulled closer to the bed by his rune. On the floor, a tiny and old bone, still clinging to scraps of flesh. They moved on to the left, into a larger chamber. The bed dominated the space, as well as a wardrobe fit for a giant, and nightstands that could pass for podler desks. At the desk, a stack of pages waited under a cracked oil lamp. Laz'zir brushed away the dust and read. It was the memoirs of the innkeeper Elliot, how he journeyed far and wide in search of fame and treasure, of how he left his son and wife behind until his beloved fell ill, how he sold most of his riches to open the Greasy mug and take care of his family. The story ended with the passing of Eliot's wife. Sylvic approached a nightstand, opening it delicately. Inside, one crumpled old note and a letter with fresher parchment. The old note was written by Eliot's wife, resenting her husband for his travelers, begging him to come back before the end and to raise their son Antonin. The other letter was unsigned. It spoke of Antonin's health and that nothing would befall him as long as Eliot delivered captives to the ruin. The author reassured the innkeep by stating that the young half-orc was fine and that he was happy to be with his mother again. They withdrew from the private apartments. Laz'zir attempted to steal a goblet of gold on his way out. Sylvic caught him red-handed and wrestled the damned cup from his 4 hands. Alfonse shushed them hard. Eliot stopped snoring. The group came back to the Fury, whispering what they had learned to Alfonse before deciding to wake up the orcish giant. The innkeeper froze, staring wide-eyed, recognizing them instantly from earlier in the night when he dragged them through the sewers as his captives. His eyes were glassy but lucid now, rimmed with shame. "What in the blazes? How did you—" Surprise gave its way to resignation. "I guess I had it coming. You figured me out." Alfonse and Sylvic extended the notes they found in the ruins. The human pointed to the one signed by the letter K.
Does the letter K ring a bell?
The orc scratched his head, trying to shake the booze off. It would be Burgmeister Kolner. But he had been the Burgmeister for decades. He is incapable of blackmailing. Laz'zir crouched beside him, his 4 hands resting on his knees.
The Burgmeister,
he said evenly. Eliot shook his head slowly. "I can't believe it could be Kolner. The man's no saint, but he's no fiend either." He rubbed his temples, groaning. "Truth is, the damage is done. I am going to have to close shop. My name's worth less than my beer. If I come clean, maybe my reputation will survive." He staggered to his feet and motioned toward the kitchen. "Let's talk proper. I'll cook us something. Might as well make myself useful." Rhovac followed, wary, eyes on the man's every movement as he lit the stove and set out chipped bowls. The smell of stew began to fill the air, warm, faintly bitter, but real. They ate in uneasy quiet. The talk that followed was low and tired, trying to guess who was behind this plot, where Antonin might be held. When the fire burned low, Eliot led them to their rooms. "Stay the night," he said. "Least I can offer." The 4 parted in silence. Sylvic insisted on taking the child's room, Antonin's, setting the bed correctly. She lay staring upward, too alert for sleep. The wind rattled the patched window. The woad elf rose to observe the broken fenestra. Then she saw it, a streak of blood smeared along the sill, barely caked. Beyond the window, in the house opposite, a figure stood motionless in the dark, tall, indistinct, watching. Sylvic blinked, and it disappeared.